Obviously tonight it's the Philippines. And if you've all been in the same situation, let's say whether you're diving off a boat in one site or you go to a certain place, a dive site, whether it's land-based, and you're there with a group of friends, everyone's taking pictures, that wants to. And then when you come back and look at the pictures, and I always am amazed at what people have shot. They see things that I haven't seen. They look at things a little differently. So, and that's normal. It could be on land too. You go off with a group of photographers photographing one area, one event, and everyone looks at things a little differently. Now, given that the Philippines has over 7,000 islands spread out over 300 square miles, you can see the variety of things that we'll probably get tonight. It's a vast area. By itself, the actual square miles is not huge, but spread out over 300,000 square miles, that's quite a bit. So each of us will look at something differently. So in the beginning, Timur, I'd like you to, if you could share yours and just, again, each of the people, you don't have to say a whole lot, but if you tell us a little bit about what you were thinking, and it doesn't have to be every single image, but no matter what, whether and again, I know I've said this before, your explanation or running dialogue with a photograph never has to be very technical, because not everybody is interested in the whole technical part. But just what you were thinking, so that other people can learn from that. So, Timur, if we could begin with you. Whoa.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, let's play this. No, do I remove this? Oh, okay. Like probably. Oh, sorry. Okay, the theme of my presentation will be exposing the invisible. So what happened, I visited Philippines quite a few times, and then one guy offered to go and see a couple nudibranchs that are very rare. And of course, I decided that absolutely I would like to go and see them. So first, we went to Enilau Beach, Buzz and Dive Resort. I think it doesn't exist any longer. That was a trip of 2017. So the idea was to stay 1 week in Enilau, then go to Remblon, which we did. Okay, so that was the night we got on this boat in the evening, 9 p.m. And by the morning, we came to the Remblon Island. So this is what it looks to go to that. I don't know, guys, do you see, because I see on my screen the people, do you see them too or no? Or you just see
Yes.
the
Yep.
just screen, right?
The whole scene, them coming at it, looks like returning from a night dive.
Right. Okay. So you had to walk, as you see, where's the bancas, there's those boats, and we would go and try to find those nudibranchs that are very rare. And this is the first one, and this is why I wanted to go. I used the camera. It's a Canon a 5D SR with the 50 megapixels resolution, and my settings was 1/200th of a second. At this specific picture, I use 22 stop ISO 100, and I use 100 mil lens. Surprisingly, every single nudibranch that what we were hunting for ended up on a piece of coconut shell. I don't know how it happened, but that's what it was. And we didn't have any problems to take the pictures because the coconut shell was in your hand, and you can basically frame the picture any way you want it. This was the number one. This was the second one. Everybody wanted to see that one. That's a ghost Melody. And this one. That was a and the first dive we saw all three of them. Actually, this one too. But I'll get back to this. So all four nudibranchs we were seeing one dive, and I don't know. I thought next dive I will probably find a better positioning or try to use different techniques. But second dive and the second day and the third day, same nudibranchs. We went to the same location, and they all were on a piece of coconut shell. So I decided to swim away from those big lines. There was probably 7 or 8 people waiting to take their shots. And the guy showed me a few things that I really wanted to see. And this is the nudie. Now I want to show you guys that it blends with environment. So I had to move probably 90 degrees. So the water would be behind it. And then I found the same nudibranch, but it was positioned differently. It was on the top of the little coral. And that's, as you see, it basically blends with the coral. But because it was on the top of it, it was I was able to separate the animal from the surrounding. This is 2 nudibranchs, cryptic fistula, and no matter how I moved left, right, I wasn't able to. First of all, for me, it was very hard to see them, and the guide pointed me a couple of times because they're tiny, and it was very easy to lose them. Then I try a different technique. I lower my camera flat with the coral, and that's the only way I was able to separate them from the coral. So this one, can you see it? Can you see the nudie?
No.
Okay, this is the one.
Oh,
And now you probably, I don't know, my mouse, I cannot point it. But can you guys now separate the coral from the sponge from
The rhinophore sticking out helps a lot.
yeah.
exactly. So no matter how much I try to go left, right, up and down, I wasn't able to do anything. So the only technique it was just to zoom in, and that now at least it's visible that it's an animal separately from it's a tunicate, right, Indy? What is a sponge?
I think it's a sponge.
Sponge.
Yeah.
Right next to it, and I thought they all pink, but right next to it, it's exactly the same animal. But as you see, it takes the color surrounding. They try to hide. I wish they all were like this.
Oh,
Right. Thank you. I'm done.
very good. Very, very good. Yeah, the cryptic, when you have a dive guide point to something that's so cryptic, and he or she is pointing to this creature, and I know I speak for myself, I look at it and I can't even see it until you get closer and closer. But yeah, that's how those animals survive. So
There was a piece of coral, and on top of it was a little tiny crab. I didn't find the picture. So he pointed to me, and I'm trying to get very close, and he's pushing me slightly back. And I'm thinking it's still a lot of space between me and that little crab or nudie. I don't remember, maybe a couple of feet. And I'm trying to get closer. He points me, no, 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 look down. And I'm looking down, I see nothing. And then I guess because with a couple 10, 15 seconds pass, the octopus just lifts up from that coral, but I didn't see it at all, Andy. It was just completely blended. It's a blue ring octopus. Uh,
Oh,
it has a one ring, not
one ring, so it's yeah. Yeah.
was a large enough.
So,
Yeah, I'll find this picture. Maybe I'll post it later. But I was actually trying to get so close, and he was pushing me back. I didn't understand what he's pushing me back from. There was an octopus right there.
well, well, great stuff. Great stuff.
Thank
Bill, would you like to go next?
So I saw, like I say, I thought this was an interesting, I guess, like a Syrianthid.
Or related to it, yeah.
Yeah. And this was oh, shoot, I forgot what it was already. Little shrimp with eggs. Unfortunately, the very long arms and stuff, but they're very hard to see because they're all clear.
Well, we call that the cigarette butt shrimp. Cigarette butt shrimp.
Oh, it has a name and I'm drawing a blank now, and I thought I had them labeled. Oh yeah, mushroom coral shrimp with eggs.
Yep.
Sorry.
And you can see the arm on that too.
Yeah, and just keep olaying. And these are the little amphipods or something like that that are swimming around every time you're doing a night dive. They get in your eyes, your ears, whatever. But I like feeding these things to coral polyps and basket stars. If you put your light close, then the basket stars and the coral grab them. You can see they're very small. That's the sand they're on. Can't see the screen. I'm trying to.
I think you should be able to, if you put your mouse over on the right side, it should give you a little arrow. So you should be able to step through them in the window that you have open. You shouldn't have to keep opening new ones every time.
You would think.
Just try the right arrow.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so one of the things I was doing was looking at, these blue starfish were everywhere, but like everybody probably knows that's been there, you have to look on things because there's a lot of mutualism or symbiotic relationships. Like this was a little crystalline sea star that was on the underside of one of the blue starfish. So what was it somebody said about sharing?
You can hit when you put your mouse over on the right side, there was a little arrow that appeared like up next to the picture on the right.
Yeah, right.
There it is, right there.
Oh, there it is. You're right.
Yep.
You're right.
Yeah, there you go.
And okay, I said I was going to do a little video, so this was one of the basket stars.
Cool to see at night.
Yeah, I know, and they were fairly common there, and I think they're pretty spectacular.
Where were you, Bill?
This was the Dumaguete in the Philippines, or Dumaguete.
Bill, do you have other videos you're showing?
I don't have to.
No, I'm just saying, so you didn't click when you did the share, you didn't click the box that says optimize for video, so it's kind of jerky for us.
Oh, well, that's my jerky anyway, because that's one of the things
Oh
I
no,
can
this is Zoom jerky.
What's that?
This
Yeah,
is Zoom.
I'm the jerky.
When you share, if you're going to show other videos, I suggest you unshare and then share again, but click that box?
Well, I can skip the videos. Oh, well, all right. This one I'll show because I thought it was a clam. Well, it is a clam, but I just thought it was kind of interesting.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was going crazy.
he probably didn't like us.
Is that a gooey duck?
No, I think the gooey ducks are just in the Northwest, the US Northwest.
Oh, oh. All right. So, and then of course there were, oh, sorry. These were cuttlefish eggs in a coconut. We checked it every single day. And we never saw any hatch, even though they were hatching, but just not when we were there.
Well, we did get to see the progression as they started to mature. They matured very quickly.
Yes, and fortunately, there were only 3 of us trying to take pictures, so we were good about sharing. But, hopefully this time we'll get to see some perhaps actually hatching. But, obviously you've got to be there at the right time.
That would be wonderful.
And if you were,
I actually have a picture of one that just hatched, but it's not in my slides.
I know, well, it's like, you got to be there for these things. The more you get there, I guess the better.
Yep, increase your odds.
Sorry, I won't show. And this was an emperor shrimp on a sea cucumber, another one of those things where you have to look for organisms that tend to live with other organisms. I won't show that. And of course, this is Andy's fin. He was helping to
Fine
feed the
looking fin.
fish.
Oh,
And longhorn cowfish, manta shrimp. And I did it in black and white, but it wasn't one of the really colorful ones. But anyway, since
oh,
and mushroom coral shrimp. And then the coconut octopus. And the crinoids were, brilliant colors and stuff, but this one really stood out with the bright yellow. So, but anyway, I guess I can quit, let somebody else go now.
great pictures. Very, very nice.
Well, thank you.
Memory lane, because I was with you for a lot of those, so it was nice to see them.
Yes, you were. You had some excellent stuff too, obviously.
I
But
love
so,
the black and
Bill,
white
did-
mantis.
what's
Bill,
that?
Love the
you
black
use-
and white mantis. It was great.
Well, I was black and white because in color it didn't come out very well, and it wasn't one of the really colorful ones anyway. But so this is like the before. This next trip is going to hopefully be the after.
All right. Good,
I have a
good.
question. Bill, did you use external flashlights?
I did until it died. I had the YSO3 strobe, but it died after, I don't know, a few days. And they fixed it when it got back under warranty, but that didn't help me while I was there.
Mm-hmm. So you use just a internal flash?
Yep, pretty much. And the 2 little sidekick lights. So I'm better prepared for this trip, hopefully.
It's tough when some of your equipment goes down, and that's why it's good to have backup. So, Brian, would you up for going next?
Sure. Let's see.
Yeah, go on.
All right, there we go. Yeah, I went to Dumaguete also. We did little side trips to Apo and Oslab. So the journey, we hired a driver to take us to JFK, and then direct flight from JFK to Manila. That was a long haul, but I managed to sleep, so that was quite good. Time didn't pass that slowly, so that was good. And then a quick little, domestic flight from Manila to Dumaguete. I don't remember. I think that was an hour and a half, but it's not too bad. And then a van ride. The Atlantis picked us up at the airport. Took us down there to the resort. The resort's awesome. I didn't take any pictures. It's a great place. Like it's a really nice spot. Dive operation is great. Definitely recommended. I never take pictures on land, and I didn't on this trip. So if you want to see what the resort's like, go to their website, I guess. So this was my first trip with the EPL9, Olympus EPL9 mirrorless. So almost all of the dives, I had this setup right here with the 60mm macro lens, and then I had a 3D printed flip adapter for the diopter, so I could get in really close. For Apo and the Ocelot, which was the whale sharks, I went to the wide angle setup. So I had just the 14 to 42mm kit lens with the backscatter M52 wide angle. There are other wide angles that are, better suited to this setup that give you a wider view, but I bought this for the TG, and so I had it, so I'm going to use it. So the diving, we did most of the boat dives were from the resort. It was walk onto the boat, take a boat ride for like 10 minutes, and then hop into the water. Some of the dives were like hop on the boat for 90 seconds and then get off, because that's just where they stage the gear. But we did have one shore dive because the Coast Guard said it was too rough to dive from the boats, so they offered us a shore dive, and it was. I'm used to shore diving here, so it was very funny that they were like, "Oh, we'll carry all your gear." I'm like, "No, it's fine. I'm not. This is nothing." So generally, we were doing 4 dives a day. They offered 5 dives a day, but we were the group we were with also included a photo seminar, so we had that instead of one of the dives most of the days. Small groups, which is fantastic. 4 divers plus a guide, and muck diving rules. I love it. This was my first experience with muck diving, and it's fantastic. It's basically you're diving on like a sandy or rocky bottom with not a lot of, there's not like coral or anything, and like basically any structure that's around is just covered with stuff. So yeah, and it's super fun. Like it was super laid back. Like since there were 4 of us, and like we would all kind of set up at a spot, and then the guide would like go around and find stuff. And then we kind of switched, so it was like super chill, no rush, like kind of ruined other group diving for me, but that's all right. So this was like one of the first pictures I took on the trip, and it's one of my favorites. Just a little porcelain crab on an anemone. I like their little pom-poms. There were a couple things we saw basically every dive. Clownfish were always around. There was always anemones with the varying species of clownfish. This is just sort of your standard, Nemo, Ocellaris clownfish. Another one kind of peeking out. But they're fun. They can be tricky to photograph because they move so much. But they're awesome. They're awesome to see. It's just always stuff around. And then we looked carefully in all the anemones because there was always other stuff in addition to the clownfish. So this is a little tiny harlequin crab, little anemone shrimp. These guys were, they were all over the place. Lots of fun, tricky to photograph with the clear body. But if you could, get them against a good background, it worked out okay. This is the striped tail catfish. These normally come in groups of like a couple hundred, and they like just sort of swarm all over the place. You've probably seen videos of them. I had the macro lens, so I was like, well, I don't know, we'll just try and take a picture of one of them. And it came out pretty nice. We saw early on in the trip, we saw a bunch of blue ribbon eels, which was cool. They actually changed colors through their various phases of life. I didn't see any of the black or the yellow ones, but other people did on the trip, which was pretty cool. Peacock mantis shrimp, of course, big and very colorful. This was early in the trip, so it was like one of those sort of things where I was like, oh, this is super cool. You know, I guess we'll probably see a bunch of them, and then we saw like maybe one more, but we only got a brief look at it. So whoops, blasted through. Yep, another peacock mantis shrimp. This was a different species of mantis shrimp. This is a grabby one. So they reach out and they grab their prey as it is swimming by, rather than the peacocks and the next one, the pink-eared mantis shrimp, which is what I believe what Bill had the video of. And these guys are awesome. They're constantly running around. They'll like you know, you sort of startle them. They like go dive into their hole, and then but they within like seconds they're like, I'm back. I need to see what's going on. They're so curious. So that's fun. This is a fang blending. We saw a number of these they were in a lot of bottles. Like some of the dive sites just had bottles set up. So they were around. They like to hide in those and just peek out. I really like this this macro shot just because it's got, you know, the blenny is just really nicely focused and sort of naturally framed up by the circular bottle opening, which is pretty cool. Oh, generally I was shooting like f/22. You know, I've moved around some, but usually shutter speed either like 125 or 200. I feel like almost every dive we saw some variety of ghost pipefish. This one I think we only saw maybe once or twice, but these are cool. And the awesome thing about seeing them a bunch of times is that we had the opportunity to like be kind of picky, right? It was like, okay, well, these guys like to normally hang out with the things they camouflage in. So like you're trying to shoot them against a background and they're just invisible. So you can either kind of wait them out a little bit, or you can just be like, all right, well, that's fine. We'll see them again. So we got to be kind of selective. It's also the robust ghost pipefish. This one has some eggs, which is pretty cool. And I really like the little like color on their fin too. But these are really cool. Same thing. They love to hide in the green stuff. So if you can get them against the sand, or open water in the background where you can really light them up, it works much better. Ornate ghost pipefish, saw lots of these. A lot of times I would say most of the time they're like sort of brownish black, but this one was a lot lighter. Same thing. You're seeing all my shots against the good contrasting backgrounds, but I have a bunch where it's just like, yeah, I don't know, maybe there's a pipefish there. This guy was pretty cool, a little anemone hermit crab. So those things on the side are anemones. They were out. The anemones were a little more out and open, but this was the shot that I ended up getting. So, but yeah, those guys are pretty cool. Another thing we reliably saw were like the different types of shrimp gobies. This guy, I believe, was lonely. Or maybe his shrimp was just taking a nap or something. But these guys were really cool, really colorful, and they're always on they're on the lookout. But then this was often the case. You'd see the goby out, you know, keeping watch, and then the shrimp going in and out, you know, shoveling out all the dirt and everything, you know, making a nice home for them. And then, of course, if you got too close, the goby would bolt and the shrimp would disappear as well. So that was very fun to see. And they were all over the place, just sort of near maybe like a little tiny bit of structure, but they didn't need much. They would just make these burrows kind of around, and I guess they had a little bit of supporting material, but not much. Mostly just kind of in the sand. Pygmy squid. This guy was pretty tiny and tricky to photograph because, and actually I've seen other pictures of them too, and they seem to like hanging out on the bottom of leaves, which makes it a little bit challenging. Definitely had the diopter here, and maybe it wasn't totally flush because the back isn't in great focus. Like this thing is not very big, so there's not a lot of depth of field there, but still kind of an interesting little guy. Thorny seahorse. Guys were very, very nice, and they weren't too shy. Like they didn't seem to mind us too much. So Sean the sheep. You've probably seen pictures of these guys, but this is how big they are. They are tiny. The only thing that helped, oh, and there's actually another one next to my down next to my pointer, down on the right side of my pointer. The thing that helps with them though is they always hang out on the same type of leaf. So if you see this type of algae, it almost looks like kind of like a ginkgo leaf. You got to look around there because they're usually on there. So this was a project over numerous dives to get the green sheep. And man, it's a lot. You gotta like, you know, but the nice thing is that it's a small group and nobody's in a rush to go anywhere. So and often they're sort of spotted around. So there were a couple times where like several of us were working on different sheep. So it was nice to have the time to actually like, you know, really get in there and sort of play with the angle and the lighting and all that stuff. This is another color variation of the sheep, also very tiny, but they're brighter colors, so they're a little bit easier to spot. This was many attempts, but yeah, these ones in particular are super cool.
Many attempts, but you got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Most of them are nice shots. Those are difficult.
Yeah, it was satisfying. I mean, it was nice to sort of review the shots as we were going along, and especially with a lot of the creature repeats, like you could sort of you if you're reviewing, you know kind of what you need to look for and what you really want to work on, which is just awesome to have on a trip. Like the critters are everywhere, so lots of opportunities. So we did a day trip over to Apo, which we just hopped on like the resort has some like small boats and then they have some bigger boats. And we just hopped on the bigger boats and went over to Apo for a few dives. They like brought us a full lunch, snacks, like we were still living in luxury even though we were you know, offshore. So this was much more, it was all reef, like wide angle, you know, big stuff. So I was using the wide angle setup. So it was a bit of a mindset shift to, you know, all right, I'm going to look for fish and look for things that are, you know, like a foot long as opposed to these little tiny, like, you know, fingernail sized creatures. I got this one, which is a juvenile sweet lips, and if you've ever seen them, they're basically just like constantly just like flipping around. So they're like in and out of the coral and like, you know, so you just kind of point at the area they're kind of dancing around and just sort of like fire off a bunch of shots. I was very happy after the dive to review this one and be like, oh my gosh, I like froze the motion. I like got its face. So that was, I felt pretty good about that one, but also kind of lucky. This was a big reef stonefish. This guy was mostly covered, and the guides kind of pointed him out and uncovered him a little bit. But they are large and extremely venomous. So I, as much as I wanted to get a really good picture, I didn't. This was the best one I got, but I probably could have done better. But I was just sort of like, yeah. It's the venomous spines, so like as long as you don't land on them, you're probably fine. But still, just made me nervous. This was just an absolutely massive sea cucumber. Like that pointer stick, I think is like 18 inches. So this thing was just absolutely huge. Definitely, you know, not the sort of thing we were seeing over at the resort, but all sorts of stuff at Apo. Sea snakes too, which was very cool. I hadn't seen those before. I was trying, you know, we had the photo seminar and we were talking about wide angle and composition, and it was a little tricky at Apo because the visibility wasn't great, and like there were kind of a lot of divers around, so you can see, you know, like you ended up with bubbles in a lot of the shots. And I'm also I don't have a lot of practice at wide angle, but I liked this one because I just love all the different things. Like if you look at the photo, there's just so many different species of corals. There's multiple types of anemones. You got the giant clam in the middle, the clownfish. Like, it's one of the few wide angle photos I've taken that I actually like. So, yeah, pretty colorful too. So that we did, I think, 3 dives at Apo, and then we went back to macro land. Had to swap the ports over and, you know, get everything set up again for macro. So I think it was about halfway through the week we went to this dive site called Punta, and this dive was insane. Like we rolled off the boat and we basically like landed on top of this wonderpuss. Amazing. Like they are really cool. They have super long arms. They have like, you know, they're sort of flowy, and they you know, was like, oh my God, there's, you know, a bunch of divers here, but then, you know, kind of calmed down and let us take some pictures. So that was cool. We're like, you know, 3 minutes into the dive and we're already seeing like just an amazing creature. So we like wandered around. We're looking at other stuff, and all of a sudden tap 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 tap. So the guides had found a blue ring octopus, and this one, man, it was so colorful. They sort of vary, and like the rings kind of pulse, but man, this one just popped. So I did take a little video. We'll see how this works. I did click the optimize for video, so I didn't really have like much in the way of video lighting, so the colors are kind of washed out, but it was fun to watch them move around. This was a different one that was actually a little bit smaller, but he was just super bright. And that little wrasse that I videoed for a second there was like following him around. If you didn't really love that. So yeah, so that was the blue ring octopus. That was epic find number 2 of the dive. And then we're looking at this blue ring octopus. Tap 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 tap. I'm like, all right, what are they pulling us away from a blue ring octopus for? And they had found a flamboyant cuttlefish. And so, you know, this is one of the times we saw a flamboyant cuttlefish. This is what we found. I was looking at it. I'm like, what the heck? Like, what's going on here? And then the guy just kind of went whoosh, you know, just sort of like pushed a little water onto it. And then boom, like bright colors, you know, just crazy vibrant, incredibly cool little creature. So we're kind of sitting there watching it, and it's I don't know, not super jazzed that we're there. But then it's sort of like, all right, these guys aren't going to go anywhere. So then it starts kind of walking around. And so I flipped a video as soon as that happened because it was super cool. Just love like the hypnotic, like the colors pulsing and the little fin going. And then so it started hunting, like using its little harpoon, catching, you know, in that case it was a little fish. And like I was just completely in shock. Like I've seen that on you know, on like YouTube videos and like National Geographic stuff, but I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening like right in front of me. So that was incredibly cool to see. And that was the third epic creature on this one dive. That was it for Punta, but we went back the next day, you know, by popular demand. Everybody's like, we gotta go back. And we saw all three of those things the next day also. So just crazy. If you end up in Dumaguete, make sure they take you to Punta. Bobtail squid, saw a bunch of these at various spots, but I love the color. I love the color on this one. And they're fun to watch because they just like bury themselves in the sand and then use their little arms to just like sort of flip the sand on top of them. It's pretty funny. I actually was very proud of myself because I found this one. This is a needle cuttlefish. And yeah, pain to photograph because, you know, it just blends in with everything. So fortunately, I managed to kind of use the depth of field to kind of get some blur of the background there. And then I think I used Lightroom to help it along. But yeah, so you can get a little separation to see the creature. So lots of little frogfish in Dumaguete. We saw tons of the clown frogfish, which are like yellow and orange. We had these the painted frogfish were pretty small, like kind of usually, yeah, I don't know, 1.5 2 inches. This one, I didn't really notice that it had its lure out. Otherwise, I probably would have worked harder to get it in better focus. But having the lure out was like, oh, super cool. He's fishing. This one was bigger. This was a warty frogfish. You know, probably, I don't know, cantaloupe sized, maybe a little smaller than that. They're also interesting because there's so many textures. It's tricky to like make it identifiable as a frogfish. These guys are cool little shrimp fish. So they hang vertically and just kind of, usually you just see them kind of drifting around. Also difficult to photograph because they like to kind of rotate on you. So this one I managed to get both facing the same direction, which was nice. These guys were cool. I think this was the only one we saw, but this is a coral hermit crab. So they just like live in a hole in the coral, and I guess they just grab whatever floats by. But they're really cool. Like they're, you know, the patterns on their eyes, and like that's just an interesting creature. Definitely gotta like keep a lookout for those next time because I would love to take more photos of them. So one night we did a mandarin fish dive. So we went over to this particular dive site, I guess, where the mandarin fish like to hang out. And we went, you go like usually around dusk. And you have to keep your lights off unless you have red because then they'll spook. But so we were kind of hanging out there, and then as it was like basically as the sun was going down, so it was getting dark. And it was like nothing for like 20 minutes. We're just sitting in this one spot in a circle. Everybody's just like sitting still. And then all of a sudden we started to see like little bits of movement kind of in the, you know, sort of on the bottom. It was like, I don't know, more like sort of chunks of rocks. And so we saw mandarin fish at various times kind of moving around. And then what they'll do is once they find the mate, they'll swim up cheek to cheek and then come back down. So you can't start taking pictures and flashing and everything until they start up. Once you start up, you know, fire away. I think we saw probably 2 or 3 pairs, but it's so quick. So this was my only photograph I managed to get. I got both of them. This is a heavy crop, but there's 2 mandarin fish in it. So it was kind of a cool experience, and I got one, you know, questionable picture out of it. This is a bubble coral shrimp. These guys are also super cool. They're very tiny and they live in the bubble coral. Definitely another creature that I want to go back and try to find more of because I really like them. They're really cool looking. This picture kind of ended up, you know, the focus is okay, but it was the only picture I got, the only like decent picture I got of the bubble coral shrimp. So that's my best for now. Yeah, as Bill was saying, there's crinoids all over the place. And we started looking in them and around them for like all sorts of little creatures. So there's this little crinoid squat lobster, pretty cool. Obviously, the camouflage is nuts, so they're tricky to spot. And then there's also these little crinoid shrimp, which are even smaller and even less, sort of oddly shaped. They more blend with the shapes of the crinoid. So they're tricky to spot. And obviously there's different shrimp in different colors based on the color of the crinoid. So this is a different crinoid that's like this almost like navy blue and orange. And so you got a navy blue and orange shrimp. We saw some nudies, but I felt like I was hoping for more. This is the Pikachu nudibranch. There's a yellow, there's a yellow color variant that looks more like Pikachu, but these guys are very cool. So I was glad we managed to see a few. They were like, we showed up at the dive site and they're like, they're at this one dive site. We'll see a couple of them on this one dive site. And that was, I believe that was the only place we saw them. So your guides know what's up. That's definitely true. This is another just large species that's just outrageously colorful. They're so cool. There are a couple other variations that are like, there's some that are have less of the orange and more green, but they all have like the sort of stripy patterns to them. This one I only saw this one once. It's super cool. It's like this kind of like starry, it reminds me of like a, stars in the sky. Good size too, and moving pretty quick. That was I know on one of the dives, we got up and Paula was commenting that the nudies like run in the Philippines. So it's not always, they're not quite as stationary as we're used to. This is an interesting one. This was another one where actually no, the way I spotted this one was because it was up in the water column and it like drifted down and landed on the bottom. There's no chance I would have ever found it if I had been just like looking at the bottom. But really, really cool. So at the end of the trip, we had the option to go to Oslo for some snorkeling with the whale sharks. So yes, I'm going to do that. Oslo is nuts. If you've never been there, it's Jonathan Bird actually has a video about it, but it's crazy. There's huge crowds. There's like long waits. You show up there and you get a number, and then you have to wait around for a while until they take you out. And it doesn't feel like a particularly natural whale shark encounter because everybody's lined up. Basically they line up boats and then they bring the whale sharks in. So they do feed the whale sharks, and so they have guys out in little boats. So they're tossing food into the water, but you're like immediately nose to nose. So this was like right after I got in the water. Yep, I'm getting the wrap it up music. So I got two more slides, I think. This is just a little quick video. Hanging out with the whale shark. And then this was a cool picture that Paula took. Me with the whale shark. So that's it. Thank you for
Wow.
listening.
Superb. A lot of great images.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun going back through because obviously I looked through them when I took them, but it was enjoyable to go back and see them.
Wow. Great stuff. Very.
And Calvin.
Awesome. Awesome.
So now we're going to move to Virginia. Would you ready to go? Up for going?
I'm going to go first because I'm already sitting here, if that's okay.
All right. Okay, sounds good.
Can you see the screen?
Not yet. Hit share.
All right. How about now?
That's good. Yep.
All right, cool. So everything I'm going to present is from Antelope. Presume most people have been there or heard about it, but we were at Crystal Blue Resort, and so everything there is macro. You can see all the dive sites. Crystal Blue is actually where that little triangle is, kind of in the center. And then there's a number of dive sites on Mabini and then on the island across the way. So I use a Sony A1 with an Nauticam housing. I use a Kraken and a Nautilus SMC for diopters. For macro, I typically use one YSD3 strobe, and I like to snoot. So then I use the backscatter mini flash on the other side with the backscatter snoot. That has two aperture cards. I usually take the oval one down because I can angle it to make it either a circle or an oval. I actually like to make things more detailed and see what's going on. So I tend to go for sharper focus. And I'm generally less into the artistic photography stuff. And I usually shoot to get more depth of field. And sometimes that means I'll shoot farther away to get more depth of field and then zoom in with my in Lightroom. So first tier, this is a squat lobster. It's on a soft coral, the Dendronephthalia. And there were several of these, and I thought they were pretty cool. I tried to take the group, but that picture just doesn't show up. But I wanted to try and get the eye and the pinchers in focus, and so I was pretty successful in doing that with this. So of the 50 pictures I shot, I think this is the one that had the eye and the pinchers all in focus, because to get that, the depth of field is only 1 or 2 millimeters, literally. Um, I tend to shoot at a higher shutter speed because you're so close. You don't have to worry about lighting and your flash. F20, the lens I use only goes to F22. It's the Sony 90 millimeter, and then ISO 320. And so if I switch over to snooting, then that's good for black backgrounds. So then I also shot the same thing in a little different orientation. So this gets a little more perhaps artistic, but it was upside down and kind of reaching out toward me, if you will. But I managed to get the eyes in really good focus. And of course, the claws then are not in tight focus. But the soft coral was somewhat contracted, but you can see some of the polyps are starting to come out. Same settings as before. Some people said it looked better flipped, but I actually like the natural view. I think Virginia likes the other one. So then I snooted it. So this is what it looks like snooted. So again, this is daylight, same species, literally the exact same orientation. The other thing that the snooting does, in addition to making it stand out, is that you can see some of the coloration on the legs. It comes out a lot more. You can see some of the speckling. All right, moving on. This is an orangutan crab in an anemone. I always find this species to be pretty hard to focus on. It seems like the camera struggles with the fuzziness of this, but I thought this one turned out really good. So this snooting here is the actual light from the snoot. So I got a really good fall off of the light, which I was trying to get, and I didn't have to go in and do the radial filter in Lightroom to try and cheat. So I do know that trick though, but this is all pretty much exactly out of the camera. This is one of my favorite pictures. So this is a hairy frogfish. The scientific name is Enterius striatus, and they're not all this hairy. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But the interesting thing here is he's got his lure fully extended. One little tidbit about frogfish is that the lures are different for each species, and that can help identify what species it is. This is snooted. So I was trying to get the eye and the lure into focus and also use the snoot. which would allow that lure to really be highlighted. And so I had to make sure I had the lighting all correct. And so in this picture, it managed to work out. I also like the green eyes. This is a poison ocelot octopus, so it was buried in the sand, and I kind of thought it was cool that it had that cap of sand on the top. I was actually snooting a frogfish when this swam by, and then it started to dig in, and then it popped back out. So I moved over to take a picture. I would have liked to have gotten the snoot lighting a little bit tighter around it, but this guy or girl did not stick around to let me really play around a lot. So I really like this picture. This is a shrimp, and I don't know what species it is. It's on a Halimeda algae, and there is actually a Halimeda shrimp that looks somewhat similar to this, but the front of that shrimp and the back is not clear, whereas the front of this shrimp and the back of this species is clear. You can also notice that it has a very fine legs that look red, very fine red, and that mimics the what I presume is some type of hairy algae that's on a couple of places. You can see it in the upper right in particular, and then right below the front of the shrimp, you can see some of that. This is not snooted. That's a little bit of a mistake, but this is one that I went down to f16 to try and blur the background a little bit and isolate without using the snoot. So this is not snooted. This is a coral. It's Leptoserius explanata. And I really thought the texture of this coral was really interesting. So this is a little bit more artistic. I did put the lighting to the side to get some of the shadows going. And I really thought that the texture was really cool in this. It looks almost like waves, you know, underwater. I also got a bubble coral shrimp. This one actually has eggs, so you can see under the abdomen on the left side at the bottom, you can see the eggs. So I also really like the texture of the anemone as well, because I thought that it was really cool. So very hard to get the whole thing in focus. I got the right pincher in focus, and then the left one starts to trickle out of focus a little bit. This is a hairy squat lobster. So I took this dark because I thought the eyes really popped out. So I was trying to get the eyes to really be the focal point here. And these guys are really cool. They tend to hide in these crevices and sponges, so they're not easy to light anyway. And then my last picture here. So this is the skeleton shrimp. Unlike what their name suggests, they're actually an amphipod. They're not a shrimp. This is an adult, which is in the very center. You can see the eyes. Hopefully you can see my pointer, but there's one eye on this side, and then there's another eye right here. And then a lot of these other structures around here are juveniles. And so there's a juvenile right here. The eyes tend to be red. There's a juvenile here, another one here, another one here, another one here. You can see the claws for that one. So just a ton of shrimp. I read that after mating, the female of some species will kill the male. Apparently, they have some venom in their claws. The adult here, the claw is here, that this yellowish structure, and then the other one is over here. There are actually a lot of different species of skeleton shrimp, and I have no idea how to tell any of them apart. So that's all I have. I am now going to switch over to Virginia.
Great stuff, by the way. Wonderful images.
All right, there you go.
So I prefer a little bit more, unlike Michael, I prefer a little bit more of the artistic, and try to get more of a fuzzy background. So my setup is a Nikon D850 and a Nauticam housing. I primarily use for macro, which is most of my photos are from Dumageddon to start with, and then Analau, and I shoot with a 105 along with a Kraken +6 diopter. That lets me get closer to the subject and not with the depth, with the focus of the 105, I have to be like a foot away. So the diopter lets me get in a little bit closer. I generally, when shoot macro, I shoot with one Linon Z330 strobe and also the backscatter mini flash. And like I said, I prefer the softer backgrounds, and I'm usually shooting to get less depth of field. Here's just a photo from, we don't take mini topside apparently, so all mine primarily to be underwater. So here is a thing, Blenny. These first few are from Dumageddon, and I really wanted to capture the subject with a colorful background. You can see even with the diopter, I'm shooting at f/18, and this allowed me to get in sort of more of that fuzzy, creamy background. Same with this nudibranch, Kraken +6 diopter, and he was a larger species, so I was able to use the +6 diopter, not have to go to the larger diopter. I don't really like shooting with it. It gives me a headache. And you can see I'm at f/25 with this, and you can also see a couple smaller of, I don't know if, oops, okay. You can see a couple little smaller ones on the top and the bottom of the algae. This is my version of the flamboyant cuttlefish, and you can see I really am trying to separate it from the background. I'm shooting fairly low, almost on the sand, and trying to get that creamy background. This is shot at f/14. I find that I shoot a lot at f/13 and f/14 in order to get this effect. Same with effect with the hairy shrimp. My settings on this one are f/25. I'm pretty close to the subject, and I am shooting with the diopter, and I shoot with the flip adapter. So this is a nudibranch. I don't know what type it is. Michael did not identify it for me, unfortunately.
It's not a flamboyant cuttlefish, though.
But it is not a flamboyant cuttlefish. But one of the reasons I wanted to show this is because this is without the snoot, and then I actually do snoot. And this is with the snoot. So I kind of like the effect just to show what the snoot does and what it doesn't do. So kind of without the snoot and then with the snoot. And the snoot really, as Michael was saying, it really kind of draws in, like, you don't really see the background, which is, I guess, the point of the snoot, and you're really just focusing on the subject. So here are a couple of ones of snooting. One of the things I don't like about this is that piece of, what is that, Michael? Little
Piece of junk.
piece of junk in the photo. But I really liked this nudibranch, so I was kind of upset after. I thought I had nailed it in camera, and of course, then you go and put it on your computer and you can see it more. I do use Lightroom and some Photoshop, but primarily I'm using Lightroom.
I can get rid of that for you.
This is a porcelain crab, and so now all those previous ones were from Dumageddon, and then these are some Analau shots. So this one is snooted. And then I also like to try to play a little bit with the high key backgrounds. This is it's a nudibranch. And in order to get this effect, you're really having to blast it with light. And that allows, instead of it that black background, it allows this bright white background. And I liked it with this one because I liked the white lines that were running throughout it. And I kind of feel like it was pulling in, and it just allowed me to play a little bit more. Also with the same kind of high key effect, but bringing in some creamier beiges is my pink eye goby. And you can see I'm shooting with an f/16 to create that depth of field and sort of have that blurred vision with really just trying to keep the sharp eye. And I did a sort of a similar effect with this goby and just really trying to pull in the reds. I liked how it was on the red sponge and the red goby and just kind of the eye and focus. This shot was just something I thought was kind of fun. I feel like they're talking to each other and it's a bit more of an interaction. This one I'm shooting from below to sort of get that fuzzy background and to break it from the background. This one I am shooting at f/22, so it's a little bit more depth of field. Same kind of effect with this Nimbrotha, trying to separate it from the background, shooting from below. And then the coconut octopus, we're back at my favorite f/13, which is kind of what I use primarily when I'm shooting on the sand in order to separate it from the background. I really liked the curve of the tentacle in the front, just kind of drawing you back into the octopus. This is my version of a peacock mantis, f/13 again, and letting me kind of get that creamy background. And so the background is basically sand because it was a very sandy bottom. And so this just kind of helps me separate the subject from the background. These were a couple of Nimbrothas that were mating. You can see the docking station in the middle. And then also kind of with the same background, you can see the pieces of coral in the back a little bit more, but still trying to create that fuzzy background and separation. This is me just kind of playing. It's the Saga Magic Tube. And I was just kind of trying to see what it would do and just kind of have fun and do a little bit of different shots. I would do it for a few shots, but I wouldn't want all my portfolio this way. But I liked this one with the frogfish. I was a little upset. I thought it was all, I thought I nailed it. And then I go and look and there's a little piece of sand in the eye, which made me sad, but so, and then my last photo is a wide angle, and this is, all my other ones were with my Nikon, and this was before my Nikon with a Sony. And I was looking for formations. It's the Sardines and Mobile, which is pretty close to where Oslab is. I say just a little further down the coast. And I was just looking for formations, and you can see it was pretty dark. I was at 180 f/11. Probably could have bumped my ISO a little bit up. That is all for me. So thank y'all so much.
Fabulous. Great images.
Thank you.
You know, very different look using the wider aperture. So it really does, the effect
It's
was worked. Looks
It's interesting when I see when Michael and I compare our photos in the evening because we will take very similar, same subjects, but very different photos.
wonderful. Very, very nice. Andrea,
Yes,
what do you think?
next, right?
Next. So where are your images from, Andrea?
Well, I already did the Photo Society presentation of both of my trips. The first trip was 2019 and the second trip was 2023. The first trip was Puerto Galera and Anilau, and then last year was Dumaguete and Anda Bohol. So I didn't want to really repeat what I did in those presentations. So I sort of pick some stuff that's really not too popular, that usually gets pushed aside on a presentation. So let's see what we have here.
All right, sounds good.
So let me first share my screen. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so this is from Anilau, and it's a Harpa articulatus, and I've always just taken nudibranchs, but this was the start of me really enjoying gastropods and bivalves. I just saw this thing, and the side view, the animal is probably 2 times the size of the shell. And I never saw anything like it. I didn't know what it was till I got up close, and then I noticed that it's a seashell. So I just fell in love from then, and I joined the Malacological Club since then in Boston. Here again, this adorable little conch milling around the sand. These both are taken at night when they're out feeding. And again, this one's from Anilau. And I don't know what that like tongue thing is coming out the middle. I know the 2 eyes, but I don't know what that part is. But he was quite different. Not too big like a regular conch from the Bahamas. It was maybe like 4 or 5 inches, so rather small. Now here's a picture that I took in Puerto Galera at a dive site called Giant Clams, and I shoot with the TG4 with 1 strobe and a spotting light. So I was like, well, I'll never really get a good picture of a giant clam till we went on a night dive. Well, it was really not a night dive. It was more like we were on the west part of Anilau and the setting sun was on the other part of the peninsula. So this was like, I think this was called Bubbles dive site. And it was almost getting dusk. And I just, with my TG4 and the single strobe, I was at least to get the color of the mantle. So I was quite pleased. And then this trip, I found this giant clam, and I was really able to get the color and the detail.
How big is that?
This one was probably like 2.5, 3 feet. I would say that's relatively small because the giant clams that were at Puerto Galera at the dive site called Giant Clams, I have a picture of Bill swimming over one, and it's not that much smaller than his outstretched body. So there were some really big ones there. This was just a real pretty one. And this was in Anda Bohol, and it was a night dive, and it was this soft coral, and just the way that brittle star was wrapped around it caught my attention. And then for the nudibranch section, I just wanted to take different angles. In this here, you can almost see the mouth where the radula is, and the mantle just gently being picked up with very little current. But it just, I have plenty of pictures with them just showing the body, but this had some more detail underneath. And this here pair, most likely getting ready to mate. This was a different one, just on the move. It's funny how the nudibranchs up here do not move, and then you go, Southeast Asia and all around there, and they're on the fly half of the time. And I was just happy to see this. I just had it identified because with an A, but I found this also in Anda. Well, the guide did. And, going through it, I'm like, well, it's really not the colorful, beautiful ones, but it was probably one of my favorites. And here's a case of 4th dive of the day and not having enough juice in my strobes to get this photograph of this Lobiger viridis. I had just learned about this species like last spring, and I was really itching to see it. So the guide shows it to me, and I double looked at him. I'm like, that's one of these, but it is the strangest thing. And I guess even if a predator breaks off, I don't know if you want to call that serrata or what it's really called, they can grow it back. You can see on the bottom, because his head is towards the bottom where he's got one of the rhinophores is showing. So now I'm on a quest to get a better shot of one of these. They're just amazing if you look it up and see a good shot. But I just wanted to add it. This is interesting. This nudibranch was on the move, as you can see. But what I liked about it is it has a flatworm attached to it. And I have a few series of photos where the flatworm is a little bit more to the left. Because at first I thought it was like maybe a birthmark or like a predator maybe poked at it. But I noticed that it was moving on the body. And then I looked up the AOCell flatworms, and it's one of those. Here was a thrill. At first, I took this picture in Anilau during a night dive. It's a Bulla vernicosa. Now, at first, when I took the picture, I just took one shot and kept going because I thought it was a sea hare. And not that I don't like sea hares, but I can never get a good shot of a sea hare because they're always blending in with the sand and they're moving around. So as I was preparing a different presentation, I came across this and I said, well, it's definitely, now that I'm looking at it, not a sea hare. So I sent it out and had it identified as, I thought it was a Bulla ampulla, but a Bulla ampulla wouldn't have like those darker markings on it. And so this one's vernicosa. And this guy, they tend to feed at night. And then if a predator comes, they can curl their mantle up into the shell that they have, but they really don't have protection because they don't have an operculum. So they'd be like a sitting duck during the day with a lot of fish hanging around. So that was pretty neat to read up on this guy. And this was probably one of my favorites tonight in this grouping. This was a very odd crab. The eye is, he's moving from the left to the right, and his eye is just to the left of like that sprocket area. Just an oddball. This was Portugalera. A Brock shrimp. This was, I don't know where this one was, honestly. Well, no, definitely not Dumagetti and not Bohol. So it was either Anilau or Portugalera. And he's sitting on a fire urchin. And before I went on the first trip, I wanted to just see a pink-eyed goby. So this was at Bubbles dive site on the west side of the peninsula of Anilau. So the guide said, okay, we're gonna go see the pink-eyed goby. So we go down, it was about 70, 80 feet or so, and it's this flat coral with all of these polyps. And I can see them just milling around. So I start shooting, and the guide said, no, you have to wait. So I was like, no, I don't want to wait. You know, I'm saying to myself, I want to get a shot, even if it's just the insurance shot. So we waited, and then they started popping up once they saw our presence and that we weren't a threat. And they were just hanging out on the tips of these little polyps of coral. So that was another thrill. So this in the Bulla, and that's it.
Wow, fabulous. Great pictures.
Thank you. It was the odd bunch.
Well, a great odd bunch. A lot of cryptic stuff and, oh, very, very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice. Now for our international presenter. Again, for those of you that may have come in a little bit later in the meeting, Ellen Garvey is presently in Tahiti, so doing her South Pacific. So, where's Daryl? Daryl has her photographs that she has sent to Daryl.
Yep, I'm setting up right now for her.
All right.
And just to let you know how wonderful technology is. So you guys were talking about those, my brain isn't working. The baby cuttlefish and hatching. So while the other presentations were going on, I emailed Finn a picture of one that had just hatched, and he added it to the deck.
Oh, good, good.
Okay, so Ellen, so you don't have to ask. I do have the video checked.
Thank you. So that was one that had just it's probably from that same coconut tree off of Dumageddon. So the stuff that I pulled together, I kind of anticipated what other people were going to show, and so I picked things to complement that rather than showing the classics. So, for example, I have no nudibranch present pictures in a Philippines presentation, which is pretty hard to imagine. Go ahead.
Yep.
So this was right next to that coconut tree. There was this little squat lobster, which is not a great picture. The eyes are not in focus, but I just love the way he was sitting in this little crevice looking at us. It's just one of my favorites, so I put him in. Next. So to give people an idea of when we're talking muck diving and things being small, that's my finger is in there for a comparison, so you see what you're looking at. So if you're going to the Philippines, make sure you've got contact lenses or a good mask so you can see really tiny stuff, because there's a lot of things about this size. Okay. Went to Tubitaha last year and things were a different size. This is a Napoleon. We had about a half a dozen of these on one dive, and you know, they're just amazing to see. I've only ever seen them, I think, once or twice before. Okay. So this is another example of just kind of the strange stuff that you see with muck diving. So that is a crab that has landed on top of, is that a cockatoo? Isn't that a cockatoo fish?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah. So I'm guessing people can see the black thing. Yeah, the black thing. Yeah, particularly with the fin, it helps. And then this crab. Oh, this crab has just landed right on top of it. And you wouldn't see either one of them with all the junk around. Okay. The rest of these are videos, which I have to give credit to Mike for taking. So this is a similar crab to that last one. So as you're going along, you see what you think is just a little piece of this algae, like you see him landing on, but obviously he's motoring. Okay.
Nicely covered in algae too.
So this is the, I guess everybody knows about the gobies and the shrimp. Sometimes you'll see two shrimp with a goby. This time this is, I don't know whether you even see the larger goby. It's sitting almost vertically. So this is two shrimps and two gobies sharing a hole, which is a little unusual. Okay. This is a mimic octopus. I think somebody had a still of these, and I thought it might be interesting to see the video. They It's a little jerky looking, but they just kind of slither around. He's not really doing his mimic thing at this point. They can turn so that all their legs are going in one direction, and they change color, and they, honest to God, look like a flounder,
He's actually
which is why
hunting.
they're, yeah. But this is the typical kind of movement that you would see. Go ahead. And then obviously a night dive with this giant octopus. Always like the color that you're able to get if you've got light at night in particular. So he wasn't changing colors like some of the reef octopus do, and he was quite large.
Oh.
You can see him. For those of you who are old enough, we call him the Jimmy Durante octopus. Okay, so Andy's old enough. I don't know about anybody
Okay.
else. Next. So Brian got me on this one. I thought I had a unique thing with that video of the hunting flamboyant, but he skunked me. So you can skip that one.
It's cool to see, though. You don't see that.
Don't mind the dive master on the left. If you can stop that for just a sec, Finn. So we had been looking for a stargazer all along. And so it was our last night. This is Puerto Galera. Last night we went out, and then you can go ahead and show it. I was a little dismayed that the dive master was digging him out of the sand, but you'll see that he's being very careful. I never really knew what a stargazer looked like, except I just always envisioned they were kind of like a flounder. And I was rather surprised to see that they are, in fact, not at all like a flounder. And then he posed for us.
It's the best part, getting to watch them bury themselves.
Yeah,
Very cool.
obviously it takes a special kind of sand to be able to do that.
Very nice.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw the lights on that. So if you're diving with somebody that's doing video, it's great to use your light to show them where whatever it is you're looking at is. But once they've got it, it's probably you should try to avoid putting the light in the subject. You can see this isn't too bad, but sometimes it's really bad when you're trying to get the subject and everybody thinks they're helping by putting their flashlights on it, and it actually doesn't help at all. And that's it.
Very good. Very, very good. Wow. You know, in the very beginning, before we started tonight, I said, for those of you that came late, said, you know, a group of photographers going to any one area is always going to produce very different results. And look at these results. I mean, they're really all over the chart. So this is terrific. And this was our first night, our first time doing a destination. So you can let us know what you think, but I think it was successful. I think it was great to see everyone's idea of what in this case, the Philippines is, and what it looks like and what images are there. So I think we'll do this again. So I don't know, Matt, if we haven't chosen another destination. I don't
We
think
do not have a destination yet, but we have nudibranch night.
we have
coming up.
nudibranchs coming up. Yep, in July, I think. Anyway, later on. So, well, to the presenters, thank you very, very much. This was terrific. And the rest of you, we had quite a few people, 32 still here. This was wonderful. I don't know if you have time for questions from anyone, but Anyone has any questions?
Is Timur still here?
Yes, I am.
Oh, do you have that octopus? Did you want to show that octopus?
I do. If Andy, may I please?
Sure, of course,
Just
sure.
for 1 second, guys. I have actually a question for I forgot. I'm sorry, the name, the person who was showing the snoot.
Michael?
Michael. Michael, is it? I saw your the equipment you show for your camera. Is it difficult to point the snoot on the animal?
It definitely takes some practice. Um, I I would say learning to snoot is agony. Um, it's
That's the hard
challenging, and the reason it's challenging in my mind is because you see this thing. So there's this frogfish, right? Let's just say it yawns or it's got its lure out, and you want to get that because you know it's not going to keep doing it. But if your light is off by 2 or 3 millimeters, either in the angle or in, where it's centered, then you're not going to get what you want.
No,
So
I have a snoot. It's just a different design. I used to I used it. I just saw yours and I thought, do you have a nice light that beams out of that your snoot so it's easy to aim for the animal?
yes, so the backscatter mini flash does have the light that goes out the end, so you get to see exactly where the light is hitting.
I see. I see. Okay, thank you.
So some of the guides in Anilau and Lembe also, I find they can take your snoot off of your rig, if you will, and hand hold it. And some of them are quite talented. And so they know what angles to try and get the light at, because you can put your snoot from coming straight down from the top, you can go from the side, you can go at a 45-degree angle from the front,
Right.
and all of that gives you a different impact. And then you've got your aperture cards, which can be oval or round, and you're trying to
Uh-huh.
get the shape of the light. So if you have somebody to help you, Virginia's always taking her own pictures, so she doesn't help me. But if you have your guide to help you and they're good, that they have to be good though, or they won't be able to do it. But if they're good, they can really help you with that.
That's what I thought when I use my snoot, the arm, I actually unscrew all the holder devices and used my other arm to kind of point it, but because my setup is very heavy, my arm was not long enough to point, so I asked my wife to point on an animal while I was shooting.
Yeah,
So
a trick I do is I will put my rig down in the sand, presuming there's something you can put it down on, and I'll find a little rock or something that's about where I think I want to be, and then I will aim the light at that. And I know that the closest I can do with my camera setup is about 4 inches away. So I kind of get it set up a little bit in advance, and then I'll adjust from there. So rather than sit there and playing around in the live subject and say I'm half an inch off, I'll take it, plop it down in the sand, and with again something right in the center, and then I can move it half an inch or angle it differently and know where I'm at and get back. And I found that to be a little easier than trying to manipulate it live. But still, it takes a lot of effort, right? I shoot a lot of pictures to get the ones that look very good.
understood. Okay, so Andy, I'm ready to share my screen for a
All
second.
right, sounds good.
Just guys, let me know if you can see it.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the 1 second. How do I move this? Play. Okay, so that's the picture I was talking about. That was a fish.
Mm-hmm.
You see on the bottom.
Oh,
Ah,
So this is the first, and I was taking the picture of the fish, was getting close and close, and the guy pushed me out, and he was pointing me on that little thing. I didn't see it first, but then it just emerged.
oh,
oof.
Right.
Well,
So that's it.
you're lucky on
Right.
Yeah.
Look at this. And this is, of course, pictures I already fixed. Because if you look at this one, that's the only thing you see right here. Yeah. It's very, very difficult to spot it.
Well, I think we've all been in the same spot where you find some of the really small, interesting things when you're already home looking at it on the computer and you find out what you've missed.
I
This
think I
case, you were lucky. You had someone there to point out
I
things.
actually was with you, I believe, in we went to Dumaguete, right, together.
Mhm.
It was one of the dives. There was remember the guy, I think he became later on
Marco.
I think yes, his name was Marco. And if you guys know, all those dive guides, they have a bunch of pointers. The big one, the short one, the tiny one, the narrow one. So, and I was swimming very close to the bottom, maybe a foot, and he was showing me like go a little bit higher, and I told him that my eyes I don't see very well, so I need to be close. So he showed me once. He says, "Come closer, swim with me," and he pointed me in the bottom, and it was a yellow color shrimp, mantis shrimp, and he started slowing very his bunch of his sticks, and that thing jumped, and you can hear that bang. And he showed me, he pointed me in the middle of my body. He said, "You be careful because you go close to the bottom."
Yeah,
We had an interesting encounter, just one really quick story. We we came upon a small octopus and a mantis shrimp, not the big, peacock size, but maybe like a 3-inch one. And we thought, oh, this mantis shrimp is history. The octopus, we get him. Well, the two of them had a standoff, and it was not clear who was going to win. The dive master, swam off, and we all stayed there. And he's like, "Where are you guys?" We stayed there for about 5 minutes, and they parried back and forth, back and forth. We never did see who won. It's kind of interesting.
very oftentimes in the animal world, they're a little more intelligent than we are. They won't pick a fight with something they know they're going to lose. So they'll may just posture a lot and then take off rather than lose an arm or
Right.
some appendage.
That was a great meeting. Thank you.
Matt, did you ever get pictures, any good pictures of the mantis shrimp we saw in Bonaire?
No, I did not get very good pictures of
Nothing
that.
came out? Okay. I gotta go through mine.
Well, guys, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing the wonderful images, and
Thank you, everybody.
see you next month.
Thank you.
you.
Good night.
Good
Thanks,
night.
it was great.
Thank you. Good night.
That was amazing, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that was